One of the first things that we actually did was I helped them identify as an organization, who are we? Why do we exist? How do other people see us? Um, for these clients that we want to work with that are, not on our books right now, why would they even take a call from us? If you ask them what we do, how would they describe us? And I came to find out that around the table of
All right, here we are, another Ninestone stack to scale. Today, our guest is Brad Stave. He's a Ninestone partner, and we're going to be talking about account-based marketing and the impact that ABM has on growing companies. So, Brad, please introduce yourself to our audience, and then let's jump into it.
Alex, first of all, thanks for having me. It is great to be on the podcast. Love the work that we get to do together, and I encourage that we get to talk about ABM a little bit. Brad Stave, partner with Ninestone, over 2 decades of experience working in all facets of marketing, communications, and sales enablement for both for-profit and not-for-profit organizations. And now I get to do that with organizations dotted all over the U.S.
You got it, man, and we appreciate you. So let's jump into what is account-based marketing?
Um, that's a great question. A lot of folks, I would say, Alex, I don't know what you think about this, but a lot of folks have shared that account-based marketing is business to business sales, right? It's B2B sales. And it's a little bit different than that. Really what it does is it its core focus is to take sales teams and then align them with the marketing team around the accounts that really matter the most for that organization. So, the way I put it earlier is that you're moving from like scattershot to just a real direct, straight focus on that. So it's a lot more intentional. It's incredibly thoughtful. And what it really does is it allows organizations to understand who their existing customer base is and who their prospects are, and then develop a strategy around that to speak to those prospects and to turn them into customers.
So, like, walk us through some examples of account-based marketing and how it may vary to, paid advertising or cold email or network marketing.
Sure. Alex, from my perspective, everyone has always affiliated ABM with B2B sales. And that's largely true. You can find it in the consumer space. If we look at um, things that really have a high ticket value, like real estate, for example, that allows for ABM. But a great example would be I'll actually give you a retail example. A real fun one is Toyota. They cannot do account based marketing. They are all about volume. But Ferrari, Lamborghini. Those are real high-end cars. One sale equates to uh, a lot of funds for the company. And so what they can do is they can do ABM, and what I mean by that is they can identify who their customer base is, and really tailor their communications directly to them. So, another example, I guess, in the commercial space, from B2B is an organization that, let's say, I'm here in Seattle, that produces um, uh, parts for airliners. Right, we've got quite a few vendors just down the road from where I am that do just that, and they work at quite the premium, and so it allows them to not just blast out through, like, paid advertising, just as you shared, but it allows them to look and see, "Okay, who is our existing customer base? What new prospects are out there that we would like to get in front of, and what should our communication be around specifically to them as an organization?" So it's not even looking at an industry, it's looking at a specific business that they want to do business with as well. That's another example.
Brad, when I think about account-based marketing and the way that we've applied it a lot at Ninestone is that we're actually targeting specific accounts, right?
That's right.
And an account may have multiple constituents. So there may be multiple buyers. There might be an executive that has to buy off. There may be a CFO that has to review kind of what is the budget. There might be a CIO that looks at the tech stack that we're suggesting and how we're going to integrate things. So we're identifying a specific business. There are multiple constituents at this business, and we treat that as an account. And within that account, there might be multiple different services or statements of work that we may have with that business. So it's not just about targeting the right people. For us, it's been about targeting a small group. So let me give you an example of a defense manufacturer that we worked with. Right? They did special type of work with all kinds of things, satellites, airplanes, all that kind of stuff. And they manufactured specialized parts. There were only 113 clients in the world that they could sell to, only 113 accounts. So we knew exactly who those people were, and we knew every constituent that had to buy off on a specific proposal or quote, right? And we had to treat each one of them different. We had sales assets that were tied to every different constituent, and we had a marketing approach that was specific to each of those businesses, right? Not a marketing approach that worked for everybody. It was for each business. So that's how I see it, right? Really targeted, really tailored, and you have different people buying within an organization.
Yeah,
Are we on the same page there, or are you seeing it differently?
no, I would probably just the only thing that I would add to that is not only are they buying, but specifically, Alex, and you're spot on. Within these relationships, you have more often than not a collection of decision makers that are in different roles within the organization. And if you do not get buy off on all different levels, it can cause the deal to go south, right? And so there is a lot of complexity in high end B2B sales around account based marketing. And so those elements need to be brought into the equation when people are assessing it.
So when we're thinking about, I'm just trying to give our audience an idea of how this works. When we think about targeting, how many accounts are we often targeting? And it could be, I know it could vary, right? But what are you
Yeah.
finding?
Yeah, well, you know what? It does vary, but it is incredibly small. And I think that the example that you gave is a really good one. So, account sizes, if you're going to be going uh, really, if you're going to really drill down, the account sizes, honestly, Alex, can be as low as going after like 10 to 25 accounts. Right. That's pretty much the lowest that you're going to go to if you're going to be developing out your targeted account list. It can go all the way up to probably around 150. But at that time, you're really starting to dilute your pool because what you should be building that target account list off of, as we talked earlier, not in these terms, is the ideal customer profile. So the ideal customer profile allows you to develop out what that targeted account list is. And so you want to find high fit, high value accounts, and you want to ensure that you are starting in the right place within those accounts. And so it's a good question. If you are an organization and you say, hey, we only got 10 to 20 accounts that really fit this, that's fine. It can be up to 150. If you feel like, wow, I'm actually touching 300, 500, 600 accounts, it's too much. You need to really pare that down to probably about 150 max. What are your
So
thoughts? What have you seen on your side?
yeah, we're usually targeting somewhere between 10 and 40 accounts. So and usually smaller. So if the bigger the projects, our CEO, Dr. Tonkin, will talk about an experience from Oracle where the CEO of Oracle says, "Hey, we're going to go get the top 10 telecommunications companies in the world to be, to be customers of Oracle." So they went and got one, and that one helped them get the next one. And those two helped them get the next one, right? And over time, a couple of years, the sales team had all 10 of the top telecommunications companies. So that's kind of an example, almost like dominoes, right? There's social proof in getting those big clients so that you can go get more. So we had a client that did cloud consulting for Fortune 500 companies, and we identified 5 to 10 Fortune 500 financial institutions that they wanted to get. So we got 1, 2, and then we started getting more, right? Just all of our marketing and our entire marketing team and sales team was designed around getting 5 to 10 financial service accounts. And we did the same for healthcare.
So when you did that, how did you decide on that first account that you were gonna go after?
Yeah. Um, well, in this case, we already had an account. We had a large, big financial institution, Fortune 500 company that was super well known. And we knew that the work that we were doing for that company is work that we could very well do for the other top companies in the world, right? So we built case studies and white papers and webinars and designed everything around the work that we had done for this firm that we could share, right? That was legal for us to share, and then use that to go specifically find who are the people we need to talk to at these big competitive organizations that would buy our products or services. So
That's
that's how we've done it there. Other times we've said, "Hey, we, we research and identify who are the ideal clients that we have at the right revenue level and employee and the type of business." So let me give you an example, accounting firms, right? We have organizations that target accounting firms, and they said, "We want to go after, right, the accounting firms that are between the top 200 and the top 300." So we actually started with a set of like 15 to 20 accounting firms that were around 200 to 220, somewhere in there, 200 to 250. Researched every single one of those and identified 20 and said, okay, we're all the marketing, collateral, sales assets, communications, places that events that we're going to go to. All of those are associated with those 20 companies, right? And our job is to go get those companies, right? One after another, right? So when we look on LinkedIn, we're targeting those folks, right? And we had a whole buyer profile too. Who is it? Like, who is going to buy this piece of technology from at an accounting firm, right? And it's a suite of buyers, like you said. So that's very different than saying, I want accounting firms. Good, I'm going to go after all accounting firms in the country with paid advertising and search marketing, right?
Yeah, that's your
Or
that I mean, that is kind of your traditional B2B sales, right? And so, you touched on a point, and that's really, um, one of the first places that we've got to start at, Alex, and that is identifying the ideal customer profile. So folks have probably heard that out there, the ICP. It's a pretty common term. And, you nailed that. I love that example that you shared too, because you said, well, we already have a customer. And so, if you have a customer or you have a series of customer, write down and think through like, who is our ideal best fit customer? So I'm closing my eyes. I'm thinking through, this is a customer that, great to work with, great fit for our company. They find a lot of value out of us and we find a lot of value out of them, and write down, who is that? Because you can replicate that. You can find other customers just like that. And that's exactly what the ICP allows for. And then, you start looking at that. Maybe you're able to pull from your base 5 to 10 customers that are saying, like, you know what, if we could close the shop and just focus on these are the folks that
Yep.
we would focus on. And then you basically look at patterns within those. And you're like, okay, what are some commonalities that I'm seeing between all of these customers? And you start to really dig in there. So I like where you're going, and you're absolutely right. I mean, what you described and what I'm trying to talk through right now is there's just a real thoughtful process that gets that ICP understood.
So let's talk a bit about that. And we're going to come to some examples you've done recently where you've coached organizations on how to do this. But we call it at Ninestone our progression of performance, right? Let's talk through what that is and how that applies to ABM.
Yeah. Okay. So it applies to account-based marketing, but no, this is something that I really inherited. Dr. Tom walked me through this, and a lot of you might think that this is intuitive. And if you feel that way, then congratulations. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's also something that it might feel intuitive, but you actually have to go through these motions. You have to go through them in this process. And so, how do you basically take information and pass it on to the next person? So this is what I went through with a private firm out of in the Midwest. So the first thing is that we spent some time learning. Okay, so we spent some time building a foundational understanding of account-based marketing, ICPs, what targeting looks like, and what alignment can look like for their organization. So we're not pulling them into the equation yet. We're just learning about these as principles. That's the first thing that we did. And then we started to practice. So starts with learn, then you move to practice, and that's when we start to really apply those concepts in real time. So we had fun together. We had a lot of paper out and we were debating. There were some voices that got pretty excited and they were defining what their ICPs were. And then we moved to building account lists and crafting the messaging. So then you start to practice. Then you go to rehearse, right? And so, that's a lot of scripting because
Hmm.
to get it right, you wanna do it right. And so there was a lot of, like, simulations that we did together about, what would it look like for us to kind of go through that, customer engagement and buying journey. And then we moved to perform. And so, that's really understanding, um, what's working, what's not working, and measurements around that. So learn, practice, rehearse, and perform. It's a great model, and it really benefited the organization that I was with.
Yeah. And so Dr. Tom Tonkin came up with this progression of performance, or at least, I believe that's his model. And he shared that with us. And it can be very, very effective, or it often is. We do this with a lot of organizations. What were some of the results that you had, some of the early results with that organization
Well, I would say probably
that
the
you can
big.
share?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, that I can share. They were great folks to work with, Alex, very candid, very open, very honest, and one of the first things that we actually did was I helped them identify as an organization, who are we? Why do we exist? How do other people see us? Um, for these clients that we want to work with that are, not on our books right now, why would they even take a call from us? If you ask them what we do, how would they describe us? And I came to find out that around the table of these senior leaders, people had a large um, varying degrees of opinions on how they even identified their own organization. So it's critical that
Mm,
senior leadership all understand and get on the same page of who are we, why do we exist, what are we here for, and what kind of problems are we trying to solve for our customers. If you don't get that, it's going to be scattershot. You're going to be going everywhere. If you do understand that, that's when teams can really pull together from a marketing and sales team perspective and see some real wins there. So that's really the first thing that we did, and that's a big win that they saw.
what about any sort of like direct getting more business, right?
Yeah.
Impacts to the top line.
Um, that's a really great question, and I think that one of the most interesting things that we found out when we were looking through this, and something that they really benefited from, um, uh, after the fact, was within organizations that they were already working with, Alex, there were other verticals that they weren't touching at all. And so they basically, through their ABM experience, were able to think through, okay, not only who is our ICP, but within an organization, are there other areas? Are there other verticals? Are there other places in which they're working that we could actually provide a real solution for that we haven't touched? And so that was pretty exciting. That was really neat to see that they were not only able to dive into new accounts, but to develop some accounts even further because they just hadn't had those meaningful conversations with the partners that they already had. And that's going to be easy for us, right? I mean, what's harder to get a brand new client that's never heard of you or to go deeper in with your existing client base? And they were able to do that and they were pretty excited about that.
So then what are the biggest challenges that organizations are facing, and why are why are there a lot of organizations that are, let's say under 50 million not leveraging an approach, a strategy like this?
Well, um we've all heard of the term the tyranny of the urgent, right? This
Hmm.
requires, Alex,
No,
leadership.
what are you talking about? Just kidding.
You know exactly what it is, okay? So we got fires going.
Yeah.
We're trying to service the clients that we've got, and so, we're just basically doing everything we can to just, get through the day. What this requires an organization to do, and probably the biggest commitment, is I'm just going to pause, I'm gonna take a deep breath, and I'm gonna do some reflection, right? And I think that that is hard for an organization to do, and, I've been most
Hmm.
of my life internal within organizations, and that's why a partner like Ninestone that can walk an organization through something like this is pretty critical, because we can give them the space and the tools and the resources that they need to have those meaningful conversations, to unearth opportunities that are sitting right in front of them, but their timing doesn't allow for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. I gotta say though that like when you say pause and take a breath, I feel like a cat with my hair standing up.
What do
Like,
you mean?
oh, it makes me feel so uncomfortable. And I've talked to a lot of organizations that have basically said, oh yeah, we're not gonna do that. Right? We're not gonna pause operations to go figure this thing out. And the way we've gotten around that or worked with that collaboratively is to say, okay, let's take a small set of resources and a small team or even just one person, and let's run a pilot. Okay. Our account based marketing will be a pilot test, and we're going to go after a couple of accounts. And so we're not taking the whole team off of, we're not rerouting the whole initiative and all the things that we're doing from a marketing and sales side. We're thinking of ABM as an additional pilot resource, something we need to test because we know, or at least think, that there's market opportunity for us by leveraging this strategy. And most clients have said, oh, yeah, no problem. We could run a pilot. We run those all the time. Right. So if you're hearing like, oh, stop everything, and there are ways to actually leverage ABM while continuing, your major initiatives as a sales team.
It's true. I would say though, I mean, I'm kind of that person at Ninestone. It was, we're working with a new client right now, and we're doing a partner journey mapping exercise, and we're also assessing all of their systems and processes. And we initially wanted to just dive in, as you know, Alex, and look at what we could do to solve some of their most pressing issues. And they gave us the space and we gave ourselves the space to say, like, you know what, we need to do some research first. And so I am by no means saying halt business as is, but I'm saying that there needs to be decision makers that decide, yeah, you know what, let's take and slow things down and methodically look through our business so we can make some of the best decisions possible. But I love your idea about doing it from just with a small group of stakeholders. The other thing that's really critical, and these were some of the pain points that this organization in the Midwest was talking with me about, is they said, to your point, I think that our savvy sales leadership is going to understand this, but for the folks that just want to get wins on the board, no matter what, that's gonna be hard. And so if you
Interesting.
wanna go after account-based marketing, you have to have your marketing leadership that's gonna be doing a lot of the analysis and the assessment and providing those key accounts to your sales leadership, working hand in glove with sales leadership so, they can really do that together. Because there will be folks that'll be frustrated and wanna just plow through. That's a bit of a salesperson's, persona that they just wanna get as much done with as little pain as possible. And so you really need that sales team and that marketing team to be working together on this one.
Yeah, I think that's super true. So at Ninestone, we've put together a whole process around ABM. What is ABM? An entire training program, our progression of performance around ABM, and then specific key performance, indicators that we're trying to achieve that are custom to the
That's right.
organizations that we work with, right? So, Brad, just share with our audience, first off, thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing with organizations, how you're helping them think really methodically and in a targeted way about how to get new business, how to expose their business to new verticals or new opportunities in the marketplace, or even find, new opportunities, and really leverage their resources in a more efficient way. We've seen all those things happen and significant growth in companies. How can our audience connect with you, find out more, etc.?
Sure. Well, we've got a lot of great resources already that I would love to share with folks. You can find me at brad@ninestonepartners.com. You can shoot me an email or even a text at 253-486-2452. That's my number. And I'd just love to hear from you. And I can share with you and cite some examples of what we've done to walk organizations through this. It's pretty painless. It can be done in about a day or two. And throughout that process, we do, of course, as I shared earlier, we help define ABM. Most folks know what it is, but they might not know what it is in theory or how it applies to their organization. Then we talk through what that ideal customer profile is. We then build that target account. We craft their account-based marketing playbook. So, what is that playbook going to look like for them? I coined that myself. I put that together. And then we do some execution planning. And then, as you shared as well, Alex, really important, those KPIs. How are we measuring this? What does success look like? Right. And so, got great resources, got great overviews of what this entire process looks like. And I would love to have an initial 15-minute conversation with any organizations that are doing B2B business that really want to get savvy around ABM, have those conversations and see what we can do to serve you.
Yep, absolutely. You got it, Brad. Well, we appreciate your time, and we'll see you all next time on Stack to Scale.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. Click here for more great content to help you scale smarter. If this episode was valuable for you, share it with a friend and drop a comment below. And when you're ready to scale, visit us at ninestonepartners.com. Until next time, keep stacking, keep scaling.